Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for the second part of our story. Let's jump right back in. His phone buzzed again. Another life needed saving. Go, Darren told him. We'll keep building the case. Corey nodded and turned to leave. Jeanette spoke as he reached the door. Schedules are locked. You'll have coverage. No one suspects a thing. They watched him go, the quiet rhythm of his retreat familiar. He'd save lives tonight, and next week he'd take his own back. At the Keith house, Abigail buzzed with nervous energy, adjusting the dinner table for the third time. The china gleamed. The chandelier glowed. Guerra's place was set at the head of the table. Corey's usual seat had been moved, subtly demoted. She noticed but didn't let herself linger on the thought. Lucas bounded downstairs in designer clothes. Another gift from Guerra. Everything ready for Coach? He asked, smoothing his collar in the mirror. Almost, Abigail said, giving the room a final scan. Your father said he'd try to be home on time. The doorbell rang at 7 sharp. Lucas answered, bright-eyed and beaming. Coach, Mr. Arnold, Mr. Fitzgerald. Guerra entered like a man walking into his own home. Confident, comfortable. Wayne Arnold and Don Fitzgerald followed, nodding greetings like board members at a private club. Moments later, Johnny Figueroa arrived. The circle was complete. Guerra kissed Abigail's cheek. The room looks amazing. And that necklace, Corey gave it to you, right? She reached for the pearls unconsciously, remembering the warmth in Corey's eyes when he gave them to her. Guilt stirred. When's the good doctor joining us? Arnold asked, checking his Rolex. Right here, said a voice from the doorway. Corey stood there, still in the same suit from his hospital shift. His face was unreadable as he scanned the room. His displaced seat, the expensive wine, his wife's nervous smile, his son's eager pride. Dad, Lucas said, tone edged with teenage judgment. Coach has great news. Does he? Corey walked to the far end of the table and took his seat without haste. Please, don't let me interrupt. Guerra lifted his glass, Corey's own 1982 Bordeaux. Well, he said smug, since everyone's here. He turned to Lucas. Son, congratulations. You're looking at Metropolitan High's new team captain. Cheers filled the room. Lucas grinned wide. Abigail dabbed tears from her eyes, and the men raised their glasses. And, Guerra continued, his smile widening, this is the perfect moment to discuss that investment opportunity. Abigail, you said the college fund transfer is ready? Abigail reached for her tablet, fingers trembling. Yes, just like you suggested. But before she could unlock the screen, Corey's voice cut through the room like a blade. Before we get to that, he said, calm as a surgeon prepping an incision, I'd like to share something with everyone. Corey reached for the remote, Coach Guerra's idea, recently installed for reviewing game footage. Dad, Lucas protested. Coach Guerra was. Trust me, son, Corey said calmly, his finger hovering over the power button. You'll want to see this. The television flickered to life. But instead of game highlights, the screen showed clear footage of Guerra and Fitzgerald in the basement, audio crisp, their voices unmistakable. These desperate housewives, Guerra's voice echoed through the dining room. They think they're being rebellious with their little affairs. Meanwhile, their husbands work nights, completely oblivious to the real opportunity. Abigail's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the hardwood. No one moved to clean it. And Keith's college fund? Fitzgerald asked on screen. You're sure Abigail can access it? Please, Guerra scoffed. She's desperate to prove she's more than just a night shift surgeon's wife. She'd hand over their life savings. These people are pathetic. The color drained from Lucas's face. He turned to his mother, voice barely a whisper. Mom. What's he talking about? More videos followed, clip after clip peeling back layers, fake development plans, school board manipulation, systematic targeting of families like theirs. That's enough, Guerra snapped, standing so fast his chair toppled backward. This is ridiculous. Abigail, turn it off. Sit down, Michael Reeves. Corey said quietly, rising from his seat. Or should I use your name from Arizona? The one on your fraud conviction. Guerra's face contorted. You don't know what you're talking about. 3 states, Corey continued in that unshakable, steady tone. 3 different names. Same playbook every time. Target wealthy neighborhoods, seduce vulnerable wives, set up fake investments. How many families have you destroyed? Guerra lunged toward the door, but he never made it. FBI agent Rosa Fields stepped into the dining room, her team right behind her. Michael Reeves, also known as Marco Guerra, she announced, you and your associates are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and operating under false identities. Agents swiftly cuffed Guerra, Arnold, Fitzgerald, and Figueroa. Lucas stared at his father, seeing, for the first time, who he truly was. All those night shifts. He whispered, everything I mocked. We're not finished, Corey said, cutting him off. He changed the TV input. Hospital footage filled the screen. Corey in the oar, his hands calm and precise as he fought to save lives, while betrayal unfolded in the basement below. One emergency after another. Darren Phelps's near-fatal crash. A ruptured aneurysm. A child thrown from a car. While you were calling me weak, Corey said softly. While you were laughing about your mother turning our basement into a brothel. This is what I was doing. This is what night shifts look like, son. Agent Fields stepped forward as her team led the conspirators out. Dr. Keith's surveillance and financial records cracked a case we've been chasing across 3 states. Guerra, Reeves, used his coaching position to identify vulnerabilities and exploit families just like yours. Lucas nodded slowly, connecting the dots. The car, my captain title, they were all part of it. They made you complicit, Fields confirmed. The Audi was bought with laundered money. Promoting you was strategic. You were leverage. Abigail sat slumped in her chair, the pearls around her neck catching the harsh light like a cruel joke. The college fund, she murmured. Corey, I almost. But you didn't, Corey said. The money's safe. Our son's future is still intact. Lucas stared at the screen, transfixed. The operations, the quiet acts of strength. Each one rewriting everything he thought he knew. All those nights, he said, voice cracking. While I was judging you, you were manipulated, Corey said gently, by people who knew exactly how to exploit a teenager's anger. It wasn't your fault, son. But now you know the truth. Fields turned to the room. We'll need formal statements. Dr. Keith, your cooperation ensures convictions, but testimony from your family will solidify the case. Lucas looked up. What about my mom? That depends, Fields said, then looked to Corey. She was a victim, Corey said firmly. I won't press charges. But he turned to his son. There still need to be consequences. For all of us. He handed Lucas a sealed envelope. The next morning, Lucas opened it. Inside, an application to the Metropolitan Hospital Volunteer Program. A note from his father read, you wanted to know what night shifts look like. Come see for yourself. A year passed. The Keith house was sold. Its basement now just a room in someone else's story. Lucas, now in scrubs, adjusted his volunteer badge as he walked the hospital halls. A full year of night shifts had reshaped him, inside and out. He had learned the kind of strength that doesn't seek applause. The kind built in silence. In service. The ER buzzed with its familiar rhythm. Nurses, orderlies, and techs moving in unison. And at the center of it all, his father worked, still calm, still resolute. Major trauma incoming, the charge nurse announced. Multiple gunshot wounds. Dr. Keith. Corey nodded and moved swiftly toward the trauma bay. Help me gown up, he said. Lucas didn't hesitate. His fingers now steady as they tied the strings behind his father's neck, the same way he once laced his football jersey. Hours later, as the sun stretched over the skyline, father and son sat in the doctor's lounge. Another life saved. Another family kept whole. Lucas reached into his pocket. The acceptance letter came, he said quietly. Metropolitan University School of Medicine. Corey looked up, surprised. You're sure this is your path? A year ago, I thought night shifts were a punishment, Lucas said. Now I understand. They're a choice. A sacrifice. He smiled. And that's the kind of strength I want to learn. The scholarship fund Corey had started, using the house sale profits, was already helping other kids from night shift families chase dreams of medicine. What nearly ruined Lucas had become hope for others. Abigail had moved away. Her letters arrived quietly, apologetically, like soft echoes of a life unraveled. Healing they were learning came slowly, but it did come. The trauma center lights flickered. Another ambulance approached. Father and son stood side by side, facing the blur of motion in the trauma bay. Alarms beeped, doors swung open, and voices called out vitals in practiced cadence. "Still think I'm a doormat?" Corey asked, his voice gentle, more amused than accusatory. Lucas looked at his father, at the calm, seasoned surgeon he had once misunderstood. "No, Dad," he said, his voice steady. "I think you're a hero, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." Together, they stepped toward the emergency room doors, footsteps aligned. The lesson had come at a high cost, but it was one Lucas would carry for life. Strength, he had learned, wasn't about dominance or bravado. It was about quiet, relentless service, about showing up when it mattered most. The ambulance doors burst open. Another life in peril. Another family clinging to hope. And in the middle of it all, a father and son, once fractured, now fused by truth and time. Epilogue, 5 years later. The visitor's room at Federal Correctional Institution Waseca tried for cheerfulness, but the linoleum and fluorescent lights betrayed the truth. It was a room built for reckoning. Michael Reeves, once known as Mark O'Gara, sat in his orange jumpsuit, the years etched into his graying temples and diminished swagger. Across from him, FBI agent Rosa Fields opened a thick file, her demeanor clinical but not unkind. "Your parole hearings next month," she said. "Curious how your former associates turned out?" Reeves said nothing, but his eyes gave him away. "Wayne Arnold took a plea deal," she continued. "He's in minimum security teaching business ethics of all things." A small, ironic smile flickered across her lips. Don Fitzgerald got 7 years for laundering money through the dealership. His wife divorced him and took over the business. "It's doing well, actually. Completely legitimate now." Reeves's jaw tightened. "And Figueroa?" "Disbarred. Working as a paralegal in his brother's firm out in Nebraska. His wife stuck by him. They're rebuilding." He gave a slow nod. "And Abigail?" Agent Fields paused. This part always hit differently. "She pled guilty, attempted financial fraud, got probation, thanks to Dr. Keith's testimony on her behalf. She's in Minnesota now. Teaches yoga at a small studio. Divorced." She slid a newspaper clipping across the table. A photo from the Metropolitan Hospital's new trauma wing dedication. Dr. Corey Keith stood at the center, his son beside him in a white coat. "Dr. Lucas Keith just finished his residency," Fields said. "Emergency medicine like his father. They work nights together sometimes. Hospital wants him to take over when Dr. Keith retires." Reeves stared at the image, the same two people he had once manipulated into his scheme. Now they were standing taller than ever. "And the scholarship fund?" he asked, quieter now. "The Keith Night Shift Worker Scholarship," she said. 37 students so far. Most are children of hospital staff, nurses, janitors, EMTs. They're calling it the Silent Heroes Program now. She pulled out another image of the old Keith house. The basement's a community center. Local kids use it for tutoring and study nights. Quite the change from what it used to be. Reeves pushed the photos away, but Fields wasn't done. "Victim restitution payments from your seized assets helped fund a lot of it. Not everyone recovered as well as the Keiths. Some families broke apart. Some kids never forgave their parents." She closed the file. "But a few found something stronger. Something better." Back at Metropolitan Hospital, the ER pulsed with its usual rhythm. Fast, urgent, alive. Dr. Corey Keith, now with silver streaking his hair, moved fluidly through the chaos. Lucas, now 32 and calm with confidence, earned the hard way, followed close behind. They'd just finished a brutal trauma case. One of those nights that left more than blood on the floor. "Got a minute, Dad?" Lucas asked as they stepped into the lounge. Nurse Jeanette Neff, now chief nursing officer, smiled as she wrapped up her shift. "Still working nights with the boys?" Someone had teased her once. "Always," she'd replied. "This is where it counts." Corey handed Lucas a letter from his locker. "Your mother," he said. Lucas held the envelope but didn't open it. "Still teaching in Minnesota?" "Yeah. For years sober. Therapy's helping. She writes every month." Healing, Lucas had learned, wasn't linear, especially when your pain had once been front-page news. "Darren Phelps called," Corey added. "His law firm's doing great. He's lecturing now, uses our case as a study in fraud and recovery." Lucas nodded. Darren had become family over the years. The scar from the surgery that saved his life was almost gone now, faded like so many of their old wounds. "Toby's retiring," Corey said, referring to the private investigator who had helped them unravel everything. "Says our case was the highlight of his career. Writing a book about it." Before Lucas could respond, the trauma lights flickered, the signal every night shift doctor recognized. "Multiple casualty incident," the charge nurse called out. 6 minutes out. As they scrubbed in, Lucas caught his reflection. Scrubs instead of designer labels, calm instead of arrogance. The boy who'd once mocked his father had become the man he now aspired to be. "You know," Lucas said, tying his gown, "I got a letter from Tommy Arnold last week. Wayne's son. Yeah, he's applying to med school. Asked if he'd qualify for the Silent Hero Scholarship." Corey paused, surgical mask in hand. "And what did you tell him?" "That strength isn't about where you come from. It's about where you choose to go. That the hardest lessons leave the deepest marks." Lucas smiled under his mask. "I might have learned that from someone." The sirens grew louder. In the trauma bay, the night shift team snapped into motion. Nurses, techs, residents, seasoned specialists. Each one moved with the practiced rhythm of those who'd long accepted that their work often went unseen, but never unneeded. "His father's mistakes aren't his fault," Corey said, breaking the silence as he prepped for the next case. "The scholarship committee will judge him like anyone else." Lucas nodded. No debate necessary. 5 years had reshaped them all. The scandal that had once torn through their upscale neighborhood like a wildfire had receded to the realm of cautionary tales and whispered anecdotes. Other victims of Guerra's schemes had scattered, some finding new footing, others still nursing the scars of broken trust. But here, in the emergency room where the stakes were real and the consequences immediate, clarity remained. Strength didn't come from manipulation or control. It wasn't found in boardrooms or bank accounts. It lived in the quiet consistency of showing up, especially when it was hard, especially when no one was watching. The ER doors burst open. Controlled chaos poured in. Father and son stepped forward without hesitation. Their bond no longer fractured but forged, tempered by betrayal, strengthened by purpose. In Minnesota, Abigail Strong moved through her evening yoga class with steady breath and graceful posture. The wedding ring was long gone, but the pearl necklace, a quiet gift from Corey on their last anniversary before the fall, still rested against her collarbone. A reminder, she once told her therapist, of consequences and redemption. In a quiet prison cell, Michael Reeves sat alone, eyes fixed on a newspaper clipping Agent Fields had left behind. There were the Keiths side by side, steady, strong, unified. Everything he'd once tried to manipulate, to dismantle, had not only survived him, it had flourished. That was the bitter irony. His undoing had become their foundation. And back at Metropolitan Hospital, 2 generations of Keith surgeons moved through another night shift. Lives hung in the balance. The world slept. The quiet work of healing continued. The lessons had been brutal, but they endured. Sometimes strength came in surgical scrubs, not suits. Sometimes it looked like vulnerability. Sometimes it came in the act of rebuilding what had once been shattered, brick by painful brick. Behind them, the trauma bay lights flickered again. Another ambulance. Another emergency. Another chance to prove that real heroism rarely arrived with fanfare, but in the silence of sacrifice, in the unglamorous hours when most of the world was unaware. Dr. Corey Keith and Dr. Lucas Keith moved forward, their footsteps echoing in unison down the hospital corridor. They had come to understand something many never would. Some shifts never truly end. They simply changed the people who work them. Outside, dawn broke quietly over the city. Light crept into corners long held in darkness. In a Minnesota yoga studio, in a Nebraska law office, in a federal prison cell, and in other unseen corners of the world, the ripples of one man's deception and another family's resilience continued to spread. But here, in the sterile hallways of a hospital built on second chances, father and son had found their truth. Real strength wasn't in control or charisma or cleverness. It was in the grit to endure, the discipline to serve, the grace to forgive, and the courage to begin again. Some lessons were born of heartbreak. Some were taught by fire. But the ones that lasted, the ones that shaped lives, were often learned in silence and proven in the dark. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.